phone, so want to welcome you to tonight's meeting. I'd like to call it to order. Would you join me in the pledge of the flag, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lynn, call the roll, please.
Here. Here. Mr. Tucker.
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Mr. Dubinsky.
Here.
Ms. Saban. Here. Mr. Schreiber.
Here. Item number one, or the first thing, is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from June 2nd. Entertain a motion to do so.
Moved.
Second. Comments, questions, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Assessors report. Teresa, you're up.
Good evening. I put a copy of the April to June assessors report in your boxes. Preliminary notices were mailed to 3,705 property owners on March 12th, with informal meetings by phone with the assessor scheduled the week of March 22nd and the weeks of April 5th and 19th. Informal meetings by phone with the assessor totaled 100 property owners. An additional 82 tentative change of assessment notices were mailed the first week in May, and the assessor sat with the assessment roll, with the tentative roll, for 2 full days during normal office hours, 2 hours after hours, or after 6, and 2 hours on Saturday. And this was not necessarily required, as the governor's executive order from 2020 suspending the requirement of sitting with the roll still applied, and as pretty much always, I saw no one. Grievance day was held on May 25th by appointment only. Property owners were given a choice of whether they wanted to come in person or an appointment by phone. Paperwork also was an option. No Zoom this year, I'm happy to report. A total of 38 grievances were filed for 2021. The county will complete our next year processing on July 2nd, and this makes the 2021 roll final and prior year. And 2022 becomes the current roll year, and this allows work to begin on next year's assessment roll. The spreadsheet of Floral Park current owners was completed by the assessor and forwarded to the Office of Real Property Tax Services in Albany on April 21st. This is the information that is required by the state in the delivery of the STAR credit checks to the Floral Park residents. The state has provided a tentative roll corrections report to update our STAR exemption changes prior to the final roll, and there were 3 discrepancies where we had to notify the state that we had additional information that they didn't have, and we're waiting on a response from them. I found out this week that the final assessment, the final roll, equalization rate has been approved at 100%. And the possible change to the enhanced STAR exemption program that we talked about earlier, which would require new enhanced STAR recipients to the aged in or income neutral requirements to switch to the check program. As of now, that has not passed, so hopefully it will not. Attached to your report is information off the state website. It includes Onondaga County towns, and those dates that you see are when they last updated their assessment. And in the future reports, I'm going to give you more details about equalization rates and reassessments and all of that information in little pieces. Questions?
Clay is 1974 that they have?
1974,
Yeah.
which means they don't even have an exact date.
So I thought it was a law that you had to update the assessment every year.
Actually, that's not, the law doesn't say that. What the law says, most states mandate that you assess it full value, which is what we do in here. New York State doesn't mandate that, but what it does mandate is you have to be at the same level of assessment. So if values go up in a neighborhood and they go down in another neighborhood, you have to adjust for that. So the town of Clay hasn't done a reevaluation in years and years. And they are supposed to be assessing at the same level of assessment, but that can be flexible.
Yeah, I think I read in the paper that Skinny Alice is 95.
Yes, and the new equalization rates are just coming out, so my next report will have information about how they do, what they do with the equalization rates and why they exist, and I also will give you the current equalization rates for all the towns. And you will see that the towns that haven't done a reevaluation in longer time frame, like the town of Clay, their equalization rates are some of the lowest.
Would it be fair to say that the equalization rate is what makes it equitable? So if you're at the 100%,
Yes.
that's where you're achieving
Yes.
equality?
They are achieving values that are equalized to 100%, like our values already are. So that equalization rate applies to them, so that everybody brings them up to a level.
Is that what they call parity?
Yes.
An attempt at.
Attempt, yes.
Very good.
Terry, are you able at all to tell us what, assuming, it is the taxable status dated July 1, and that we would be using for our next budget, what the total assessment roll would be if all stays as you've proposed?
As soon as we're done with the final roll, yes, I will tell you what.
I just wondered how it's comparing to, say, last year, because everybody
Yes.
obviously thinks that if their assessment goes up, their taxes are gonna go up. And the way this board has held the line on taxes for, I don't even remember how many years.
14.
14
Yes,
years?
as soon as the final roll hasn't been done at the county yet, my final report is generated when that final roll is completed. So as soon as I have that, the next report probably, I will have that for you, and it will tell you how much has changed. I also plan to let you know in the fall what we're looking at as far as changes in values going forward for 2022. What my initial review, once I start in September, what the numbers are looking like.
So if we have a budget that is holding the line, let's say, we don't
Relatively
know
the same,
yet,
yes, yep.
then even though the assessments may have increased substantially, I know they certainly have in our neighborhood and what I'm hearing all around that
Yes.
people's have,
Yep.
when we get a new tax rate, it
Should go
very
down.
likely it will be lower than what it was last year, so they won't necessarily see a huge increase in taxes.
That's correct.
We shaved a little bit this year on the rates,
Yeah,
so. And
Right, the
with the
goal would
hot
be-
market, we might be able to do that again.
Yeah, that the growth in assessment, that then,
Right.
we can lower the rate.
Right.
Shouldn't
We don't
need
need to generate
Lower
as
the
much with
levy.
the rate,
Right.
so. Any other questions for Teresa?
Of the 38 grievances, when you hear a grievance, is it your goal to find a compromise or explain to the resident why your suggested increase in assessment is valid?
Okay, grievance day, that's entirely up to the Board of Assessment Review. So those 38 property owners come in, they face
The bar,
five-
yeah.
the Board of Assessment Review.
And-
And what they present their information to the board, I present information for the board of how their assessment was arrived at. And then the board decides what they want to do behind closed doors like a jury. Informal meetings with me, and this year it was by phone because we were just coming out of the pandemic and COVID and all of that. Next year, hopefully, I'll be able to do them in person. That's more informal. A lot of people come in, they have questions. Sometimes they want to know where the assessment came from, other times they have other questions. And that information is shared informally, and then I review the assessment to see if they had a valid case, and I think it should be lowered. And if I do, then I lower it, and if they're happy, they don't have to go to grievance, but they have grievance day regardless. That's
Right.
the second option.
so
Would you say that on any typical year, and on any given year, is this a typical number of grievances, or does it just fluctuate?
It's actually a little bit less than last year.
Oh, good.
Last year, I met with, I think, 135 property owners by phone last year. This year, it was only 100. I believe we were closer to 50 grievances last year. This year was 38, but it does fluctuate.
Okay.
It does fluctuate a little bit. And I know Mary Frances usually asks, and I did remember, They changed very few, they did not change 25 of the 38 that came before the board. So they only changed a handful.
13 of them. So
13.
that's still a fairly good amount to be changed. So, of the 100 that you met with informally, do you have an idea of how many may have changed there?
It was, I think, 55, out of the 100, 55, between 50 and 55 received no change, and then the rest did. So it was closer to 50-50.
Do you find that most people are aware when they bring comparables in, like my neighbor sold for whatever, that they have to go prior to the previous July 1st?
No, typically not. Most people don't know that they should bring comparables.
Oh,
What?
We're still learning that.
Okay.
We're still learning that.
yeah, because the date thing is always confusing. And of course, next year, where this market has still been crazy,
Yes.
we're going to see increases most likely again. Would you explain again, because I know I find people asking all the time, like, my neighbors sold for, I don't know, 50,000 over assessment, that you have to look at what you and consider a neighborhood. It doesn't have to be their immediate neighborhood, but whatever you've outlined for a neighborhood, that you have to look at everything within it, so you
Yes.
can't discriminate and just
Our-
pluck the one that's
yes.
sold out?
Yes, our analysis is done by neighborhood in the town. We start with what has happened with each property type, residential, commercial, vacant. And then we pick those neighborhoods and types of properties apart. For residential properties, it's reviewed by neighborhood because location is important and similar properties, are important. Once that analysis shows that the level of assessment is not within 5%, which means it's below 95%, then that entire neighborhood gets evaluated, whether it gets trended. If it's really close to 100%, it may get a trend, which means everybody goes up by a certain percentage. If it's further away from that target of 100%, then they get reappraised. And that is like an appraisal, only on a mass scale, where we pull up a comparable sales, typically 5, most cases, of comparable sales in that neighborhood to give us a range of value, both prices and prices per square foot. And that's what's used to generate the new values. You can't pick the 5 in the neighborhood that's sold and raise them without raising everyone else, without reviewing everyone else. Because then that destroys the equity on the assessment.
Okay, question for you. If somebody gets raised or sells for 50,000 over, as Pat said, when that house, say, is split ranch or whatever, you compare it with another house of
Yes.
the same type.
Same
So
type,
it wouldn't
yes.
be a ranch versus a
Yes,
split
apples
level?
to apples, ranches, colonials to colonial.
Okay.
And that's very difficult. Most neighborhoods, they get it, but when you get out on Kingdom Road and Connors Road, and there's a mix of properties, they want to look at the other dissimilar types. They want to look at the old styles, or they want to look at, the farmhouses, that kind of thing. So, but no, we always try to do apples to apples and oranges to oranges, which is what an appraiser would do as well.
Any other questions for Teresa? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Item number 2, this is to make a correction. I didn't get the right information for the last meeting. The wage rate adjustments for Kim Saxon and Wayne Bailey from $13.50 to $13.70. We should have done $13.70 at the last meeting, not $13.50, per the park director's memo, and that will go back to catch them up till 6/2/21 when for the last meeting when that took effect. It should have been the $13.70. So I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
We need to accept the assessor's report?
No.
Just receive it.
Pardon me?
Oh, I said we just received the assessor's report. I'm talking to myself, I guess.
Item 3 is the comptroller's memo regarding amend the budget per the comptroller's memo to cover the tennis court and capital repairs. That work is underway as we speak. Basically, we're gonna increase park repairs, and we're gonna take money from the appropriated fund balance in the amount of $15,850 to cover that. We have to approve it so Greg can modify the budget. And entertain a motion to that effect?
Move.
Second.
So, question, so we're taking it from the fund balance?
Yeah, the appropriated fund balance.
Because it says increase that.
Yeah,
Increase the use of fund balance.
yes.
Okay.
I know it doesn't make sense, but
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, well. Any other questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, I have some additional ones to add. Approval of trash hauler license for Chuckett Haulers, dependable disposal, Morgan rubbish removal, Butler disposal is added, and Syracuse Haulers is added. And they're all getting them in a hurry.
Good. See,
Entertain a motion to approve those hauler licenses.
Moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
can't wait to see the traffic.
You still chasing them down the street?
No, I haven't
Not
lately.
anymore.
I
Okay.
can't run fast
Oh,
enough
okay.
anymore.
Okay.
Still a good story.
Yes, it is. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Not
I have a penciled-in number 5. I omitted this from the agenda. You all got the memo from Heidi in your packet. Lynn Pinyard will be the new park attendant at $13.50 an hour, and she wants us to adjust the pays for Garrett Petrelli and Catherine Peters, returning recreation aides, and they'll make $12.90 an hour. Kayla Buchko will be a recreation leader and will make $13.75 an hour. Alicia Montague will be, the playground coordinator, should be making $15.80. And there's one additional one that come in this afternoon that needs to be added. Jared McMonigal, he'll be a rec aide at $12.80 an hour. Entertain a motion to that effect.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Glad she's finding people. They
Yeah.
already have jobs.
So, no other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Counselor Committee reports and comments, MF.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Pat?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Ron?
No.
Darcy?
Nothing.
Howard?
I'm good.
Okay. Wendy? Boy, everybody's good tonight.
Consistency.
Doug, are you good? Okay.
Wow.
Holy cow. This down is the first.
Senator Mannion has asked us to provide some projects for SAM grant funding through the state. DASNY administers those grants for the state. Jason and I expect to have those submitted to them by next Friday, their deadline. So just want to make the public aware of that.
What's Sam?
What is it, state aid to municipalities grant?
I think so,
Makes sense.
yeah.
I think that's what that stands for. They have so many acronyms, you
I know.
gotta have a book to remember them all. That's all I have. Citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to address the board? No? Okay. Jason and Nadine are both out with their children for their school functions tonight. There wasn't anything on the agenda, so I excused both of them, so. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn till July 7th at 7 PM.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for coming.
I'm gonna oppose.
I won't be.
I have